Off to the United States now, where Americans will face a moment of reset when they go to the polls in presidential elections this November. That is the view of South Africa's former ambassador to Washington, Ebrahim Rasool, as Republicans kick off their national convention. The former top diplomat to the United States believes Democrats must frame the election as a referendum on the incumbent, while voters in general could do the world a favour with how they vote in 70 days' time.
As Republicans gear up for a four-day build-up to President Trump's acceptance of his party's nomination on Thursday, words of concern from Pretoria's former top envoy to Washington.
Biden and Kamala Harris may need to get out of their own way and to say this is more of a referendum than an election. We may be the most imperfect candidates, like Hillary may have been. But at this point, what's on the ballot paper is, do you want 4 more years of this kind of leadership in which we defund the World Health Organization and we compete to get the vaccine only for ourselves, if it comes? Is this the time, for example, for us to enter this war, this trade war with China, and jeopardize the world economy? These are the issues at stake that's on the ballot paper.
Rasool says the COVID-19 pandemic has illuminated many of the country's ills and has left voters at a crossroads.
Ironically, the hope for the country and the hope for the world comes out of the fundamental rupture that COVID-19 has brought about. You've always had systemic racism in the US, but the added burden, the added assault on lives and livelihoods brought upon by this virus, COVID-19, has almost been a tipping point, the last straw that could break the camel's back. And so I think that the reason that we saw those protests was precisely because for the first time, African Americans were blown out of their complacency by the fact that they couldn't afford health care when they needed it, by the fact that they were only 15% of the population, but 30% of the deaths, 30% of the infections. And I think that that is what is having a devastating effect on people who may meekly have accepted their lot in life, but have now been moved to urgency.
I don't see Joe Biden as a threat. No, I don't see him as a threat. I think he's only a threat to himself.
Despite lagging in the polls, President Trump enjoys the benefit of incumbency. All 3 of his predecessors, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, each securing second terms. And he will seek a boost from this week's convention as he lays out his vision for the country.
I don't think that unity will be the result of what comes out of November, whoever wins. But what I do think is it's a moment of recoil. Hopefully a moment of recoil in which if the Democrats were to win, they could push for the reset button and to say, we need the chance to rebuild our bridges with fellow Americans who may have been alienated. At the same time, if the Republicans win, I'm hoping that that's a wake-up call for Republicans who are moderate, who are non-extreme, who have a memory of a decent civil party that added to the debates in the US. But at this point, I think that the rump of the Republican Party has their fortunes tied to the fortunes of Donald Trump. And someone needs to release them from that hostage-taking situation that they find themselves in.
Rasool echoing the view that American presidential elections have global implications.
If we get this moment of reset right, we have an opportunity to turn around, even by degrees only, the situation in the Middle East. Africa coming from the margins to the center. The ability for China to not feel the need to enter the trade war with the USA, and the ability for Americans and for Europeans to find their center again, and for them to be good again in this world.
President Trump expected to speak on each of the 4 convention nights this week, hoping to cut into Biden's almost 10-point lead nationally. Sherwin Ricepies, SABC News, New York.